Hey everybody, I'm the old man, and this is a very, very quiet edition of Symphony of the Night because this is the second video where the glitch happened and there's no audio. There's no game audio anyway, and there wasn't any of me talking. So instead of just giving you just a complete silent video, which would really be a waste, I'd go back and put some commentary in here. Fresh, new commentary that won't fit in with the rest of the commentary because it's not in the same continuity. Anyway, here's more of the library. We got the Crusade Grim last time and cut a swath of death and destruction across the castle, and we shall continue to do so. And even though that's a nice little sword there, we're not going to need it. We'll never need another sword for as long as we play the game. And I think we complete the library here. Do the rest of the library in this particular video because there's a boss in here, I think. Excuse me, I'm sipping on my pink drink from Walmart. That's probably really unhealthy, but is technically no sugar and no calories, so I'm drinking it. And checking the map there. It's so weird to do these when you're like not when you're not playing, just because it's, you know, you're like, okay, well, I don't feel as engaged, so it's weird. So I guess there was a debate last night, if you can tell when this was, when I'm recording this as opposed to the rest of the series, debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and I didn't watch that. We did not watch that at our house. I don't think there was any information. I guess there's not a boss in here. I don't think there's any information that could have been put forth in that debate that I would have really needed. I think I've already got all the information I need. So we didn't watch the debates. We did watch Man vs. Food because that's a wonderful show, and that has information I need. Like, where can I get an omelet where they put in it all kinds of cheese and like chili roasted pecans and maple sour cream on the omelet? Where can I get one of those? That sounds like information I need. And the answer is Portsmouth, New Hampshire. There's New Hampshire? I think it's New Hampshire. That's right. Where's where you can get that? Which, see, that's information I can use. That's information I need. Not like the debates, where I pretty much know nothing either of them could have said could have probably changed my mind about anything. So, and I did watch a little bit of the Daily Show coverage on it, and that was enough. That was more than enough of debate that I needed to hear. Oy. Enough about that. Castlevania Library. I'd probably be talking about just some rubbish anyway, because I'm at the point where the strategery in this game is pretty much gone. Once you get the Crusade Grim, the game's over. So now it's just going through and filling in all the map pieces and beating the rest of the bosses. And there's my wife, right on cue. Right on cue. Because I was thinking about, should I record today? And then the Star Trek Online servers are down for maintenance, like they are every Tuesday about this time, and so I can't play. So I was like, oh, you know what? I needed to record that commentary, so let's do that. Let's do that commentary. Save. I always did like the sword familiar the best, I think. Even though if you do get them high up, the demon familiar and the very familiar are pretty helpful. And saying that just makes me want to go back and like play and like purposefully level those up just to show them off. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go back and re-record. That's crazy. So, what do I want to talk about? I guess here's one thing I've been thinking about lately is this really should be in a different series, but I don't care. I don't care. I've got 26 subscribers. It doesn't matter what I talk about. And sometimes I look at that and I just think to myself, like, when am I going to stop pretending this is a thing? Like, when am I just going to, like, when am I going to go face facts and see the stuttering there because apparently I didn't touch the touchpad enough. I'm going to stop pretending this is this YouTube is a thing that's, I mean, it's kind of a joke. But so far it's been too fun to stop. So I guess that's my answer. Somebody posted on I think my wife's friends posted on Instagram a long time ago, was talking about how people say that we're offended more in society. But that's only because now we're more free to talk about the things that bother us and the things that make us feel bad. And so it's not that we're offended more, it's just we're more open about talking about things. And that is true. We're definitely more open to talking about and how we say things and what we say and what should be appropriate. And I think that's good. We're certainly more willing to call, like, hey, that's racism. That thing that you're doing, that's racist. It's probably a bad idea. And that's good. That's all good. So I'm happy for that. But I do think, in general, we're more offended than we were. And I think we're offended about all the wrong things for the most part. Because every time I go on Facebook or Twitter, I wonder why I keep doing that. Like, I just look at what goes on and I'm like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Why? Because it seems like everybody's reaction to everything, no matter how small or how insignificant, is blinding fury. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, let's just take, since all the heat's died down from that for a while and everybody's forgotten about it, but the whole Ghostbusters thing. When it first started, there was just the rage over, oh my word, they're all women, it's a reboot, rage. And then there was rage on the other side too. Like, if you don't think it's women, if that bothers you, rage. You're a moron, you're terrible, you're a sexist, rage. And then, James Rolfe from Angry Video Game Nerd, whom I love. Well, I don't know him, so I don't know if I love him other than the general love for humanity. But I like his stuff that he produces. I think he's funny. He said, I loved Ghostbusters as a kid. This movie from the trailers doesn't really look like it's for me. Someday I'm going to put my phone on silent. I'm going to remember to record stuff and I'm going to put it on silent. And he said, you know what? It's not for me. And I went, okay. Because that's all that warrants. That's all the response that warrants. But what happened? Rage! The rage! Now he's a sexist. He's a whining man-child because he doesn't... Rage! And then rage on the other side. Rage! And that's the kind of thing that seems like we're offended about these days. We're just like... If something doesn't make our lives comfortable or is just upsets us in any sort of small way, all of a sudden that's offensive and it needs to be fixed and you need to alter your behavior. And I think we all need a little perspective. I think. Take another drink there. I'm talking, wet my whistle. Now remember, let's take a segue from that, and actually talk about the game for a second. Remember the boss battle that I came in here in the regular castle, and how many videos was that of me trying? Was that 3 or 4 videos of me trying to beat that particular boss? But this is the boss, the Frankenstein monster, and this is how difficult this boss battle is. There, it's done with the Crissaegrim in the inverted castle. That's why we pick up the Crissaegrim right there. That's why you do that. And you get all the pieces. You get all the pieces. If I didn't mention this, you get all the bosses in this. You need to get the 5 pieces that you got in Castlevania 2 to revive Dracula and then kill him again, which I've always thought is a strange thing. Is we collect things to revive him to kill him again. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it is a video game, I guess. I don't know. Maybe somebody more versed in Castlevania lore can explain to me why you need to revive him and then kill him. That doesn't... Anyway, what was I talking about before? The offensive thing. How we're always offended at every little thing, and we need... I think we need some perspective. I just read an article from Mayim Bialik, I think that's how you pronounce her name. But she's Amy from Big Bang Theory, and she was Blossom back in my day. And she's pretty cool. I mean, she's a cool person. She's, a neuroscientist, and she's very smart, very intelligent. And she put but she she wrote this post, and I'm not sure the tone of it. But I think she was more exploring her feelings. So I don't want this to come off like I'm attacking her, because I'm not attacking her. I think she was just more talking about it and exploring why she felt the way she did. So fair enough. But this is kind of was my takeaway from it. She went into a craft store. It wasn't Hobby Lobby, but I guess it was some other branch, and they were playing Christian music in there, which happens because, especially depending on where you are, some of these places are they're run by Christians and Christian business. And there was Christian music playing, and I guess she got really deeply offended and didn't feel welcome and didn't feel like she could shop there anymore. And my first reaction when I was reading that was, "Oh, you poor thing." I didn't understand why she would even. Because she is Jewish, so mentioning Jesus, I would suppose as Lord and a Messiah would be uncomfortable to them. Of course, it would be. However, stuff that makes me uncomfortable all the time. When I go into places, and when anybody goes into places, like when I go into it hasn't happened in a long time, but when I go into the one the gas station to get a couple good quality cigars, it's run by Indians, and they play whatever they play in there, the Indian music. That doesn't make me feel very welcome or comfortable, but you know what? I don't have to be there all day. So I don't want to. They listen to whatever they want. I'm in there for 5 minutes. And when I go, if I was going to go to a place that was owned by Muslims, I would expect to hear Muslim music. I would like to hear Muslim rock music just to hear what that would sound like. Is that a thing that they have? Because I'm kind of interested in that, because I'd like to hear that. Do other religions have rock music? That's kind of a weird question. But I would expect that I would hear music from them, from their culture. And so, and honestly, when some of my favorite YouTubers, the people that I really like and watch regularly, use God's name in vain all the time. It's like most of their vocabulary. And that does kind of bother me. But I certainly don't write them a strongly worded comment saying, you should stop saying this, you should stop, because they don't share my values. And to expect somebody who doesn't share your values to alter their behavior in a certain way when ultimately it's not really hurting anybody is kind of rude, I feel. And so I guess that just, when we're out and about and you hear something that might offend you or you don't like, you kind of have to have some perspective. You have to, some questions you need to ask, like, is this overly racist? Like, is this, they talking about, holy crap, I'm kind of taking a beating from that guy. Like, is it overly racist or sexist? Like, are they saying very obvious bad things about certain groups of people? Is that is it, purposefully offensive? Like, is there just crass, vulgar language and, in a place where it's not, in a public place where it's not appropriate, or, and sometimes that's subjective, but I don't really think it's as subjective as we'd like to believe. So, but when you go into place, when you go into different places, you kind of have to expect that not everything is just going to be to your liking. And that's just the way of the world. And so I guess I was kind of curious as to why she would be so offended too. And I think she was curious too, which was the purpose of the article, in fairness to her, because like I said, I like her and respect her. But I think in general, we tend to be offended by so many different things. I mean, when there's black folks getting shot by cops for no good reason, you don't have being offended about a movie being a reboot or having a certain thing or whatever, or the music that gets played in a store, or any number of silly little things that we're offended by, is just kind of pointless and ridiculous. And I think whenever something gets your dander up, It's, instead of firing off a reaction on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, instead of doing that, maybe just sit and just before you comment or before you act, just think about it. Stop and think for a little bit. Let that marinate for a little bit. Maybe go off and do something else and then come back to it. And if it still bothers you, then you can compose a thoughtful, argument. But if you might find that when you come back to it, that, this isn't really that big of a deal. Of all the problems we have, movies and entertainment and all that it's just not that big a deal. That's my take on being offended about stuff. Because I don't know, there's lots of stuff that offends me, but I guess I just have to get over it. I guess I just don't expect anybody to go, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that hurt your feelings. Let me just change it all for you. Like, I don't expect that. In fact, most of the time, I expect that my feelings are going to be hurt about something. I just kind of expect that that's the normal course of life is, okay, this something today is going to hurt my feelings. And typically it does, especially when you work in retail and somebody's calling you stupid for something that happened 2 months ago at not your store. So usually offenses will come. So, we should probably have a little bit more patience and perspective in how we deal with that. That's just my thought of the day in the middle of this challenge run Let's Play that got screwed up technically. So now you get me preaching at you. I don't know what to tell you. But you know what I know? We watched last night. We watched, instead of the debate, we watched Man vs. Food, and then we watched Eliza Schlesinger. It's a comedian, really funny comedian, and I can't remember what I was going with that. I just totally blanked on what I was going to say about that. She was funny. That I can tell you, she was funny. It had something to do with the offensive thing. Other than she can be offensive, and but that's part of the funny. I mean, if you're gonna, I remember now, because I said I was preaching at you about the offense thing. I've noticed, because I watched the latest Patton Oswalt thing too, and I've noticed that stand-up comedians are are starting to become the new really the new preachers. Like, we don't respect preachers anymore like we used to 20, 30 years. We did expect 20, that was the 80s. So 30, 40 years ago, we don't respect them, and we don't respect news outlets, and we don't respect the stuff that we respected 30, 40 years ago. And so stand-up comedians now I've noticed have sort of become the new sort of moral guardian / preachers of the modern world, because I watched Patton's thing, and a lot of his was just preaching his opinion. It wasn't and I don't begrudge him for that. Heck, I do it. This is what my YouTube channel is. Half of that is what it is, so it's fine. And I like to listen to his perspective because he is also very funny. But most of it, and a lot of Eliza's stand-up too, was kind of preaching her thoughts and opinions and stuff, and doing it really funny, because that was pretty funny, as was Patton. But a lot of it has become, sort of a platform for things. And I suppose it always has, but I think it's become a lot more prominent. You don't see a lot of... Excuse me while I drink again. You don't see as much... what do I want to say? You don't see as much just straight up stand-up comedy. Like we watched... the other day we watched Jeff Foxworthy and... Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy. These two guys. Because I've always liked Jeff Foxworthy. Haters gonna hate, but I like Jeff Foxworthy. I don't care what anybody says. And his bit was hilarious. He crushed it. And he was, he did a little bit of the preaching stuff, but not to the extent that some of the more liberal comedians do. Louis C.K. is another example, whose last one wasn't quite as funny. It wasn't even really preachy too. It was just sort of like, meh. But I usually think he's pretty funny. So you know, the comic who just kind of tells jokes is kind of going away, and the replaced by the comic that's, you know, about like 50 to 75% social commentary and like 25 to 50% jokes, and which is, you know, it's, things change and that's fine. Larry the Cable Guy was not funny, though. I don't think he's very funny. I do think he's the most intelligent out of those four guys. In terms of like raw intelligence, I think he's probably the most intelligent, and the Larry is just a character that he plays. But his stand up is just not that funny to me at all. I mean, it's also the whole like. Foxworthy is definitely on the redneck side, but he's definitely way more relatable and talks about relationships and stuff that everybody kind of gets. But Larry is definitely like all about the redneck, kind of all about the redneck, and all about and sometimes he's got some one-liners that can be funny, but a lot of times it's just like I just work with those people all day long, and they're not funny at work, and so they're not funny on a stage either, I guess. Though he did say, and one of the things he said, he was angrier than Ronnie Millsap in a corn maze, and I thought that was hilarious because I remember my mom used to be a huge Ronnie Millsap fan, and so I remember a lot of trips with my mom and listening to Ronnie Millsap, and so that just struck me as really funny. And the problem with watching, when we watched the comedy, the problem with that is that then I go to bed and then I like think of comedy bits instead of sleeping, and that's a problem, obviously, because I have to get up and go to work. And my wife's like, well, why don't you write them down? And I'm like, no, there's no reason. That's not. I'm never going to go to a club and try them out. It's never going to nothing's going to happen with them, because I'm a family man that has a job, and that's, you know, the time for that is over. If you're young, if you're listening to this and you're young and you're not married yet, now's the time to go do all of that stuff. All of the adventures and all of everything, because when you get married and you start having kids, that stuff, you know, the kids come first and the family comes first, and so you just go do that. I always thought this boss was really cool. Now that we talk about the game for a second, I always thought this really disgusting looking, but I think really, really cool. And Beelzebub, of course, means Lord of the Flies. Actually comes from the Bible, where Jesus, I think, called one of the demons Beelzebub, I think, which actually comes from Baal, Zebul, who was like Lord of Heaven or something in Philistine or Canaanite mythology, I think. I don't know. I've been reading Chronicles of the Nephilim by Brian Godwin, and that's pretty good too. Very preachy though, so I mean it's Christians, very preachy, but it's definitely a different take on Noah and all that stuff. Well, this took a left turn, didn't it? Oh, well, 26 subscribers. What are you going to do? You know, you get what you get. As they say in my daughter's old daycare, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. I don't know what to tell you. I just have a lot of diverse interests. The thing about that book series, though, is it kind of really plays up the mythological aspect of everything. So there's lots of like mythological beasts and stuff, and I just think that's really cool. And so it's reverent take on the stories, but a completely different take, and I just think it's cool. Very violent too, very, very violent, which is another interesting thing about it. Very violent. So how much more time do I got on this? This was a long video, I guess, and I've just been rambling on for